Brace for impact.
Welcome to the 11th episode of Brace for Impact, covering all things Impact Wrestling. We on the road to Victory Road and also almost the Bound for Glory, live from No Cell Studios on the Ace Tavern, Acefield Retro, and joined again by that Kentucky Waterfall at Malt.mania, Colton Jesse. What's up, dude?
What is going on, brother? Man, it is good to be back. I picked up a upper respiratory infection as a souvenir for my travels the last couple of weekends and was down for the count last week. I hated to miss it, but man, thanks for holding it down like always.
Of course, and the Impact product didn't disappoint last week. You guys can go check it out in the archives. But of course, it's so good to have you back talking about it. We are on the precipice of Victory Road, which I feel like we've circled this on the calendar for a long period of time. We have the 1000th episode coming up. We have Bound for Glory. We have this tour of the UK on the horizon. I know that everyone's talking about AEW and All In, and we're talking about everything that happened with WWE and their build towards what's happening in the fall and eventually towards their WrestleMania push. But let's not ignore what's happening on the Impact side of things. There's a lot on the table for really what a card for Bound for Glory coming to shape right now. We don't have any details, but Victory Road is going to provide a lot of answers next weekend, and I'm really excited to cover it.
Yeah, man, me too. They put together a lot tonight for Victory Road. They don't have a lot of time to build for the show, but they're doing a great job with what little time they have. It's gonna be a banger.
It's interesting to me because I feel like every weekend now has two wrestling events, and I know we were covering last week, of course, All In, the biggest show in wrestling history, 81,035 in the building at Wembley. But also that night was Emergence. I covered in detail last week on Thursday, talked about all the results and everything that went down. And to me, I think every wrestling company is thriving right now. And with Impact, we're consuming it in a very intimate way. Like we're watching it weekly, going through the news, combing through it. But I think right now it's almost overwhelming as a wrestling fan for the quality wrestling that's out there. It's almost impossible to keep up. My New Japan Pro Wrestling consumption has greatly dwindled since I've been watching Impact, but something has to fall off. You can't watch all of it. And that kind of makes me sad, but it's also a blessing in disguise because it just shows you the inundation of so much great wrestling.
Yeah, it's a good problem to have. I mean, it's sad when you can't get everything in that you want. And, I have a bad habit of setting up a backlog. I'm like, oh, I'll just go back and watch it. I'll go back and watch it. And then the list just gets longer and longer. But I mean, I'd much rather have more than enough good wrestling to go around than being starved for good product. And that's the opposite, man. It's, we talked about this summer being one of the best summers for professional wrestling ever. And going into the fall, you're right. It still looks like there's pretty much two events every weekend or every other weekend. So doesn't really look like it's going to let up anytime soon. And I'm here for it.
Yeah, as the leaves start to change, the autumnal season comes along. Usually wrestling's on a downward slope from SummerSlam. That was usually the typical, like, all right, let's breathe, get ready for ramp things up again near Royal Rumble. That's not the case anymore. Bound for Glory being the biggest event on the Impact calendar, bar none. And of course, AEW is throwing things for a loop as well because their biggest show of the year happens in the fall as well. And now it feels like we don't have a respite from wrestling that means something. And that's a good thing to have. But if you're sleeping on Impact, of course, maybe you're not because you're watching this show and consuming it, but maybe you stumbled upon us. But make sure you're watching Impact. If there's something out there, this can replace it because AEW, WWE, this is just as good as the product we're seeing on the screen. And it leaves me satisfied from week to week. And I know we're going to talk about the episode, but there's so much good to come out of this with the young talent, the veterans, the mix of the roster. I can't say enough good things about it.
Yeah, man. It's they keep delivering week to week, top-notch product. And, I can't get enough.
So that brings us right into the inside. We're gonna go into the segment because our big story is probably the biggest story we're going to cover here in Impact about the changes in presentation. But let's get into the inside and cover it in depth.
The inside.
All right, so we have some great news coming from the Impact camp from those Toronto TV tapings, and PW Insider was reporting on Monday that all the staff had an all-hands-on-deck meeting prior to the TV taping to go into detail about what's going to be happening in the months ahead, and they broke it down into a couple parts. And, you see fewer dates, Colton. You see when we see the word fewer dates, we feel like they're ramping things down. Maybe they're making cost-cutting, but this is the complete opposite. they're investing in the product. They want to look the next level. We saw AEW take the next step as far as their presentation go. Impact at this point is trying to keep pace, and maybe they're going to try to bid for that number 2 spot and they're going to be nipping at the heels of AEW. Maybe they were motivated by watching All In with 81,000 plus people in the building. Maybe they want to be like, maybe we can get a piece of that pie if we increase our production value.
Yeah, I mean, I think this is excellent news, and I can't think of a team that's more deserving of getting a facelift on their production value. You know, when AEW came on the scene, a lot of production folks from Impact were kind of, for lack of a better term, poached from Impact Wrestling and taken to AEW. And, you know, there was a lot of people that had to step up, a lot of new people that had to come in, and, you know, a lot of men and women just who frankly working their asses off to put out this great product week to week. I mean, what better reward for your hard work than to have, you know, get to the message from the top that, hey, we're going to invest in this. And, you know, it's going to take time for them, you know, to make these changes to their production. And, you know, that means fewer dates because it's more hands on deck to you know, improve the set and get people trained on new equipment, things like that. This is excellent news, man. Really, really happy to hear it.
So according to the report from PW Insider, Impact's production facilities will experience, quote, massive upgrades to their technology starting as early as this fall that will improve both their weekly TV on AXS and their streaming specials and pay-per-views. So the Skyway Studios, that kind of is the home base for all things Impact Wrestling in Nashville, Tennessee, will be a part of those changes. So we're going to see a lot of an upgrade, and it might be something that we don't recognize at the beginning. We're going to start to see the fruits of that labor. We saw that in AEW pretty much immediately. I know they did the facelift with the logo and they changed the color scheme. I don't know if we're going to see that on Impact side, but to keep pace in a wrestling world that is constantly thriving and upping the game on each side of things, this is great news. And, you know, we referenced the fewer dates, and after October's Bound for Glory, it feels like the calendar's been jam-packed. Even with the TV tapings, they're going to all these places, and I love these hotspot tapings that they've been building towards Colton. Like we saw the Summer Madness one, we saw the Chicago Heat tapings, and they do bulk tapings clumped up, which is effective because if you're taping in bulk, these TV style studio tapings, I know they're doing it in front of an audience, but it has the same feel as like the old school WCW tapings where you'd tape multiple weeks in a row. There's something that comes out of it. Maybe we see them move towards a live special eventually on TV. Obviously, I think the tapings, by all reports, that they're going to be doing, you know, a lot of the tapings in a big day, and maybe they're going to keep it that way. But with the production value up, it feels like they could be moving towards at least closer to a live product on a weekly basis.
Absolutely. And man, I mean, that would just do wonders for the product, in my opinion. You know, they do a great job of not letting it feel like a taped product necessarily, but just, I mean, I've personally, you know, being in the crowd for these events is a whole different experience, and for it to be televised at this, you know, be a live event, live to air, I mean, that would be incredible. And, you know, quantity over quality, man, is something, or quality over quantity is something that I'm a big fan of. So, you know, if we're going to get less dates and less tapings for a better looking product, I mean, you know, we say it every week, Impact is pound for pound the most consistent professional wrestling product out there. The storylines are great. The quality of matches are great. The one thing that really sets them apart is the presentation. And, you know, for them to get a set upgrade and also, you know, equipment upgrades to kind of give them a look that is a little bit more on par with the WWE and AEW product, that's huge.
So if we look at Bound for Glory as their season finale, for lack of a better term, that is the end of their season, whatever, WrestleMania, Bound for Glory, I guess All Out would be the equivalent for AEW. It's kind of hard to judge it on their end. We don't really know it yet, but we know that after Bound for Glory in October, they're reducing their TV taping dates for the rest of 2023 to kind of bide this time and figure out how to get this product in place. So we know that they're taping at these staple cities. Like we saw the pay-per-view in Chicago. Of course, they taped in bulk there. We saw this weekend in Toronto. They did the same there. We're going to see it in White Plains. All these things are kind of the model. And I think shifting towards, I know live's a big ask. I understand that, but I think it adds so much to the product to, you know, picking the night on Thursday night. It's kind of wide open for wrestling. You know, we're just covering Ring of Honor. That's really the only other competition weekly that's happening head to head. And I think this product blows it out of the water. And you've put this on a network that isn't AXS, sorry, AXS, but put it somewhere else. This could really get a lot of eyes on it. And it's the best case if you have state-of-the-art technology in place, you could really up your audience. And all of a sudden you're looking at legit competition for number 2. Right now they're a distant 3 by just proxy, but AEW and WWE are. But it's a marathon, not a sprint.
Yeah, absolutely.
So we're looking at as well, the Final Resolution Hard to Kill confirmed, and we're also got the announcement of a AAA joint show coming. So breaking that into pieces, the talent during this meeting was informed that Impact will hold a joint show with AAA in November that will also find its way on Impact on AXS TV. So I think similar to what we saw with Chicago Heat, we're going to see this be kind of piecemealed into all these different tapings. So we're going to see some AAA talent here. Of course, we saw Black Taurus for on a weekly basis, Laredo Kids around, but there's also some other talent I'd like to see. Maybe there's a chance we see some names we haven't seen coming over from Mexico and AAA. Before we get into Final Resolution and Hard to Kill with their dates confirmed, what are your thoughts on working with AAA? Because I know AAA is this outside entity. Of course, AEW worked collaboratively. They haven't done a joint show, but we see their championships on their television. What's your opinion on AAA and Impact working together?
I love to see it, man. I think that Impact, I mean, we see more of an open door policy among wrestling promotions now in the last 2 or 3 years than we've seen ever before in our lifetimes. But I think that Impact does a really good job of seeming to be really the poster child for that. With their shows with New Japan and the fact that they're going to do 2 shows in 1 year that are co-promotional, I think that's huge. And I think that it sets the tone for the rest of the industry for what cross-promotional relationships should be like. I'm super excited to see it.
So we also have the announcement for Final Resolutions can take place on December 11th, and they're going back to Toronto, but they're going to be at Santino Morella's Battle Arts Academy. So we know Canada's been a hotbed for Impact Wrestling as of late, whether it be Toronto or anywhere else in Canada, they're a hot product there. So Emergence was a hot crowd. They very much enjoyed, running there. And I think they're going to continue to do it over the course of time because Chicago and Toronto, I feel like have been really the hotbeds, and they're going to try their hand at White Plains for Victory Road. But why not do it if it's going to be successful? And they continue to have what is a great audience for them. Of course, in comparison, it's not 81,000 people, but they have a hot, rabid audience in Toronto and also Chicago on these events. So going back for Final Resolution, to me, feels like a good way to end the year on the pay-per-view.
Absolutely. You got to go where your bread is buttered. You're going somewhere with a hot crowd, a group of fans that follow the product and always show up and show out. Well, why not end it there for the year?
So they were also told that their annual January pay-per-view Hard to Kill will be returning to Las Vegas. They're not going to be running Sam's Town like they did the year before. This is, Sam's Town, there was some debate last year, and I know we weren't covering on Brace for Impact, but there was some discrepancy about being 30 minutes off the Las Vegas Strip, but they did not announce the location as of yet. So maybe with the discretion of the talent wanting it to be closer to the Strip and based on hotels, and you got to think about that stuff at the airport. For the talent, from what I understand and reading reports, there was for fans too to run in Sam's Town 30 minutes off the Las Vegas Strip. Not a guy from Nevada, but I understand there was some complaints at least. So maybe they've taken that consideration. They're going to run I'm saying they're not going to run MGM, but maybe it's somewhere else more local to the main Strip.
Yeah, that's got to be tough, especially with Vegas not necessarily being the best town for pro wrestling to begin with, and then to run 30 minutes off the Strip is just kind of asking for a low turnout or for issues. So, hope that they end up with somewhere a little bit closer to town and hope it's a good crowd. We saw earlier this year with AEW how Vegas was, there were butts and seats, but the crowd was pretty flat as far as energy goes.
If we can get the Golden Knights energy out there, I mean, I don't know. I know it's like dinner in a movie when you go to a Vegas Knights game because they do the pomp and circumstance before the show. You got all this stuff, and a lot of times hockey feels secondary, but I don't know, maybe get some people in seats with something else, pair it with it. I'm just hoping they have a cool venue and also the crowd, as you said, lively, because like you said, the AEW crowd didn't provide a good atmosphere, but Impact relies on it, man. Chicago and Toronto have been hot for these main events, and hopefully we get that in Vegas. So we also have the report indicating that because of the reduction in dates, less talent will be used, and Impact's parent company, Anthem, will be paying day rate talent for extra days through the remainder of the year to help offset their missing dates. The report stated no releases as planned and that Impact expects to move back to using its full roster again in 2024. We see them use an eclectic mix of the roster. We see some different faces. Of course, there's the staple guys and girls that we see on a weekly basis. This is kind of the downside when you're trying to grow. There's got to be a little bit of the growing pains, and sometimes you have to offset the cost in some way. And we see this all across all promotions, all businesses. So I'm wondering how that's going to affect the way the stories are structured. I'm not sure if it will be as evident as we probably imagine, but maybe there's a case where some of the mechanisms will be changed because they don't have the access to this full roster that they've had for really the last couple of years.
Absolutely. And you expect there to be some sort of transitionary period, especially when it's going to take all hands on deck to get these production changes up and running. We might see the product. I don't expect it to fall in quality, but we might see, a week or two that's lags a little bit in compared to what we're used to, especially with the situation with utilizing less talent. But I'm happy to hear that there's not any cuts on the horizon and that we're going to do their best to try to keep everybody whole.
So we also have our 1,000th episode of Impact of Wrestling on AXS TV taking shape. And we know it's being taped in White Plains the following night after Victory Road on Saturday, September 9th. And it's going to be airing the following Thursday. So we know it's going to be airing on delay. We're going to see some spoilers pop up. We have an Impact World title match there. And Alex Shelley will put the title on the line against former X Division champion and current tag team champion Trey Miguel, who's looking for his first Impact World title win. This will be his first Impact World title match since July 2020. So we'll go through the whole card in a second, some of the other appearances that were announced, but your thoughts on this? I know we didn't see Alex Shelley defend the title on Emergence, and you and I were speaking about that. I don't think we were hot on that at all. It's fine because he defended against Brian Myers, and we saw him successfully defended against Hiroshi Tanahashi. There's not a chance in hell Trey Miguel wins the championship here, but as far as match quality goes, this has me really excited.
Yeah, it'll be a good match for sure. Interesting choice. I'm not sure if I 100% understand the selection of Trey Miguel, but I'm also in the camp that I don't want to see the belt come off Alex Shelley anytime soon. So I'm here for an exciting high flying match between a couple of fellas. And like you said, there's no chance in hell Trey Miguel takes it here.
Yeah, and this will be the last roadblock to make sure that Alex Shelley is Impact World Champion when he's wrestling at Remarkable Wrestling Own the Night, September 16th. So maybe he'll have that Impact belt in tow. Maybe he won't, but I'm thinking he's going to successfully defend it against Trey Miguel. This will be their fourth ever singles match together historically, and the first in Impact since May 2022. Miguel is 2-1 against Shelley with all the matches taking place in the year 2022. So some numbers there. So this will be Shelley's fifth defense, and obviously he won it back in June. So he's building quite the reign here. I know you and I were looking at that title win, kind of looking at it as weird. And I understand they had a pivot because of the Alexander injury. And then of course we saw Macklin win the title, and we definitely talked about that at length. This title reign's been pretty substantial. I mean, it's been the whole summer. So Alex Shelley's it's the summer of Shelley.
And I'm loving it, man. Absolutely. Like I said, never would have guessed it going on Shelley at the time that it did, but I've enjoyed every second of this ride. The summer of Shelley's been a blast.
We also had announced on Busted Open Radio on Wednesday, the former Knockouts champion and Impact Hall of Famer Gail Kim will make her return to the ring for the first time since 2019's Rebellion. We saw her lose to Tessa Blanchard at that event. And we know that Gail Kim does work for Impact. We don't know who she's going to be wrestling yet, but the fact that she's going to be there, and we also know that Awesome Kong is going to be there, and they're both in action. Pretty damn cool. This is a nice nod to the history of the Knockouts division, which has come an extensively long way. And watching where they're at now, I'm sure it's going to be cool to have Gail Kim and Awesome Kong in the building, because they should get their flowers for where the division is, because they're trailblazers.
100%. There is no Knockouts division without Awesome Kong or Gail Kim. Very excited to see Gail back in the ring. She's in incredible shape still to this day, and she's definitely got gas left in the tank.
And we obviously know current champion Trinity will team with former champion Jordan Grace, Gail Kim and Awesome Kong, and a mystery partner will go against former champions Deonna Purrazzo, Angelina Love, Giselle Shaw, Savannah Evans, and a mystery partner itself. So going through the rest of the card, we mentioned before Alex Shelley defending his Impact World Championship against Trey Miguel. We got Team 3D, Bully Ray and Devon team together for the first time in 7 years. We have the mixed tag team match, Frank Kazarian and Tracy Brooks versus Eddie Edwards and Alicia Edwards. Trinity, Jordan Grace, Gail Kim, and Awesome Kong, and a mystery partner versus Deonna Purrazzo, Angelina Love, Giselle Shaw, Savannah Evans, and a mystery partner on their own end. Ultimate X is going to return. We don't know the competitors yet. And we get Feast or Fired returning as well. So some classic Impact stuff. As long as we're not seeing the return of the Reverse Battle Royal, I'm all in, dude.
Absolutely. And man, I'm happy to eat my words in this situation. 2-3 weeks back when we heard that Devon was going to be on the scene, I was not anticipating him competing in a match, and I'm very excited to see Team 3D between the ropes together in action. That's going to be awesome. Love an Ultimate X match. This is going to be a good card with only a couple of weeks to build. It's already shaping up to be really, really, really exciting stuff.
How much you want to bet it's squash match with Bully Ray and Devon doing the spots? They'll probably do a 3D through a table. Maybe they'll do the was up spot if Devon can get up on the top rope and do that. I know it's a big ask because that was pretty. I mean, it's a dive and headbutt. It's not easy to do if you haven't been active. So I'm probably seeing maybe Fandango. Probably can be Dirty Dango and whatever his name is. What's his new name?
Bravo.
Yeah, Alpha Bravo is going to be
Alpha
in there.
Bravo now.
Maybe they'll get squashed from Bully Ray and Devon and Bravo will take the pin. I can probably see something like that because you want to get the hits in. That's what this is about. It's a celebration, almost like the Raw reunion shows they do. You want to really highlight the history of Impact because it's there. 1,000 episodes is nothing to shy away from. It is something that they should be very proud of. A lot of wrestling promotions, the only one that was able to do this weekly TV that has 1,000 episodes is Raw. So like this is a huge, huge deal for Impact to celebrate. And I know there's been ups and downs and the history there's been some dark spots, but for the most part, they have a lot to be proud of. And especially now to see where it is, it's so great to see Impact thriving. In a lot of ways, it's recency bias, but they're churning out some of the best product they've ever done.
Absolutely. And I think you hit the nail on the head with it being Dango and Alpha Bravo. The only other team that I could think of that it might have been would be Sheldon Jean and Kenny King. But we'll as we find out later tonight, Kenny himself is going to be occupied later that night as well.
So leading to Bound for Glory, the biggest event of the year, Impact Wrestling wasted no time following All In that Will Ospreay will making his return to the company. I covered this last week, but want to emphasize it here and get your thoughts on it. So we know that Saturday, October 21st, that he's going to be there. They did an announcement with a video at the conclusion of Sunday's Emergence streaming special. Will Ospreay was back. People forget January 2016. He had appeared in Impact. Completely different guy though. Like 2016, everyone talks about turning around your body and changing the way you look and presentation wise. By all accounts, Will Ospreay is a completely different person. We saw him. He's a heavyweight now, and now he's coming out to Impact as this reformed version of himself. And this is a big deal. I mean, he is a free agent in 6 months. He wants to be making millions of dollars, and this spot on Impact is a chance to shine. It's the biggest stage Impact has to offer, so it wouldn't shock me to put, him to put on a show because everywhere he goes, I mean, right now he's the best wrestler in the world.
Oh, he absolutely doesn't disappoint. Like you said, he's not the same guy. In 2016, he did not have both number 1 and number 2 match of the year for 2023, in my opinion. I know we've still got a few months to go, but both Omega and Ospreay 1 and 2 at this year haven't been topped, in my opinion. And this is huge for Impact. I'm really excited. The guy's obviously hungry. He wants to be out working. I mean, he did an indie the night before All In, so he's not above going anywhere and everywhere, and I absolutely love seeing that out of somebody with that level of talent. So very excited to see Ospreay make his return to Impact.
And our final piece of news here on the inside, we have former 2-time Impact Knockout champion Jordynne Grace is going to be making a return to the company at Victory Road September 8th. So this was also announced on Sunday's Emergence, and White Plains, New York, the Westchester County Center is going to be the home of the return of Jordynne Grace, who is a pivotal part of the Knockouts division. She's been missed greatly. Watching her come back is going to be awesome. The last time we saw Grace wrestle, we saw her lose to Deonna Purrazzo with the stipulation that she was unable to challenge Purrazzo for the title as long as she's champion. Well, Colton, we know that she's no longer champion. Would not shock me to see Jordynne Grace insert herself right into that picture. Face, heel, doesn't matter. She's going to be gunning for Trinity's championship.
Oh, 100%. Super happy to see Jordynne Grace back. Which we first heard it announced that she was no longer with Impact. I've just been waiting for her to pop up somewhere else. I know she's been doing a lot of bodybuilding competitions and doing very well. So excited to see her back to pro wrestling and back home at Impact.
Yeah, this was all the way back in May. And it's insane how much time has passed. And the wrestling news cycle moves so fast. And she's been greatly missed, but I'm glad she had some time to focus on herself, focus on some other projects. You mentioned the bodybuilding, but there's also some other interest and, get right and make sure she's refreshed for this run through Impact. It would not shock me for her and Trinity to have this meaningful feud. It's just what the Knockouts division needs to continue this drive towards really the best women's division in all of pro wrestling right now. And a lot of promotions can learn from. And Jordynne Grace could help any division. I'm just glad she's here in Impact.
Oh, me too, man. One of the best looks in pro wrestling, period, in male or female wrestling divisions.
With that being said, let's get to blow by blow for the final section of the Toronto tapings from Emergence. Let's get to what happened on Impact on AXS.
Blow by blow.
All right, here on Before the Impact, before we get to the main show, the reason I want to mention this, sometimes we don't talk about Before the Impact, but the fact that Kushida was here on Before the Impact, he defeated Drilla Maloney, and Kushida had a new look here, a new haircut, 6-minute match, and, you know, they gave him some time here, seeing Kushida as a big star on the pre-show by all accounts. Yeah, so, I mean, seeing him here and having Kushida here, what were your thoughts on this? I mean, I was kind of shocked to see this match take place because this easily could have been on the main show.
Yeah, absolutely. Kushida is, I don't consider him a pre-show guy anymore at this point. He's a little bigger than that to me. So I was interested. I thought it was interesting that we saw him in this spot, but I thought it was a good match. And I like the new look, like the new cut.
So we move into our main show, and they did the recap video for Emergence, and they showed all the highlights. And really, I mean, they do such a great job. And we were talking about the increase of the production team. I can only imagine if it gets better than this. This is one of the best highlight packages you could ever watch. They did a good job of highlighting all the great stuff that happened on Emergence on Sunday, and really driving forward the mainstream storylines that you want people to pull away. And if you didn't see Emergence and you didn't watch it, you were like wrestling out after All In. If you just watch this video, you kind of get the picture of everything that went on. And that's the best thing about video packages. It wasn't inundated with meaningless stuff. It just had all the main stuff, had you excited. And I was pumped going into the main show after seeing this. I watched Emergence live, but seeing this with this, it was refreshing to see the highlights. And sometimes you need that as a wrestling fan.
Absolutely. Especially like you said earlier tonight, we've got so much wrestling going on at all times. Even if you did watch the show, it's nice to have a little refresher just to jog your memory right before you get into the action.
So we waste no time getting into the action with a Knockouts Battle Royal to open the show. Giselle Shaw, Savannah Evans, Alicia Edwards, Vanna Black, Jody Threat, Killer Kelly, Masha Slamovich, Jessica, Courtney Rush, and Kylan King. And the winner of this match will challenge the Knockouts champion Trinity at Victory Road. This is an easy out. I know there's a lot to, we just had Emergence. We're talking about the fallout of that. And then we're also looking at it from the lens of we need to build a challenger for Victory Road. We're watching them do the same thing over in AEW with trying to determine, if you haven't watched haven't read the Rampage spoilers, we now know who will be facing Adam Cole and MJF at the pay-per-view for the Ring of Honor Tag Team Championship. But sometimes it just takes that to establish who it is. And we got a surprise winner here. I'll let you break down some of the spots. I walked away very shocked because there are some people in this was like, you know, Jody Threat could have taken the next step. You know, you could plug and play Killer Kelly and Masha Slamovich as just people that you in there. And even Giselle Shaw, I was not expecting the finish of this match. And this person completely blew me away that this was going to be who they're going with against Trinity at really a big event. Victory Road is pretty big.
Same here, man. A lot of people are not huge fans of battle royals. I don't mind them one bit, but with only 2 weeks to build to an opponent for Trinity at Victory Road, this is the smart call. Absolutely. And I'll tell you what, when I started watching this match, I singled out 2 names. I was like, it's either going to be Kylan King or it's going to be Jody Threat. We've been pushing Jody Threat super hot. We've been seeing more out of Kylan King in singles competition, performing very well. And also, too, fallout from Emergence, the fact that Taylor Wilde has been compromised and is on the shelf. What better time to have Kylan King in a singles run? It comes down to those two. Kylan King's about to eliminate Jody Threat, and then out of nowhere, Alicia Edwards sneaks up and tosses them both out of the ring. This was an incredible swerve. Impact does such a good job of putting out good storytelling, but as soon as you think you've got it figured out, they'll swerve you. And this was a perfect example of it.
This is one of the quickest battle royals of all time. I think it went 8 minutes and change. They wasted no time. Battle royals can go fast, but sometimes they take up a lot of time. And they wasted no time here. They kind of advanced some of the stories we were talking about in the Knockouts division outside of the main championship. Some of the stuff with Killer Kelly and Masha was fun. I can't say I'm a fan of this, though. I mean, I understand that Victory Road, it's a short build from Emergence until now. Jody Threat, I mean, you mentioned her before. This was a perfect opportunity to put her in a spot. I understand you don't want her losing. Maybe that they have bigger plans for her. They don't want her getting pinned or tapping out to Trinity on Victory Road. Maybe they want her moment in a match like that to have a bigger feel. But to me, it was right there. Kylan King as well. I don't know because Alicia Edwards is tied up in the stuff that's going on with Frankie and Eddie Edwards. So I understand you have to have Trinity has to have a title defense and she's going to win. Maybe that's a thought process similar to Rhea and Raquel Rodriguez this Saturday for Payback. Maybe that's the thought, but I can't say I was a fan of this. It didn't make anyone look weak, but I just looking at this match against Trinity, like Trinity's clearly going over and there's no buzz to it.
Yeah, interesting decision to have Alicia be the one out of all these women to go over. I understand why they didn't pick Jody or Kylan King in this situation, because I think that they know that both Jody Threat and Kylan King both deserve a run for the title, and it deserves a hell of a lot more than 2 weeks of build to get there, that there's more meat on the bone there. So I think this is just partially just curse of the territory that we're in, where unfortunately we've got another pay-per-view coming up 2 weeks after a big one, and you're going to have a couple of throwaway matches here, and here's the first one.
Yeah, I think that the best thing could have been was like have a veteran go in there or a former Knockouts champion that can eat a pin or take tapping out.
Mickey James maybe would have been a good pick.
Exactly. And I think that would have been a good spot. I mean, if you could have got her earlier to come in or a Gail Kim, like I understand you don't want to waste those bullets of Jody Threat and Kylan King, but I look back and I know this is a comparison that's probably lost on some people, but the first ever John Cena versus Brock Lesnar match before John Cena was the main eventer. They did this tournament for the WWE Championship, and then he went all the way to Backlash, and nobody thought that John Cena was going to win the championship, but you sort of believed for a sec. And I think that could have been something here where he just came up short against Lesnar. You could have had Jody Threat or Kylan King just come up short against Trinity. She's a veteran. She was able to one-up these younger superstars here, and I think there was more of a story there. And mostly there's more of the work rate possibility that the match is going to be good. I'm not hating on Alicia Edwards. I think she can have a serviceable match, and it's not going to be a bad match by any means, but there's no buzz on it. And the Knockouts Championship is a main event championship. It's a world title. So having this match and I understand it is next week, so they have to have the match immediately, but leaves a lot to be desired. And you know what? Maybe they'll shock us and have a really good match, but clearly Trinity goes over at Victory Road. She was going to go over whoever won this anyway, so it's probably a moot point, but I definitely would have went with Jody or Kylan King, or just cut the middleman out and give it to Masha. If you're not going to defend the Knockouts tag titles, let Masha go in there. I know she just held the championship. Let her go in there and do her thing and lose, you know?
Yeah, I would have been much bigger fan of throwing Masha in there. It'd be, like you said, no disrespect to Alicia Edwards, but would have been a match I would have been a little more excited for. So
we get a clip from Emergence of Steve Macklin returning and attacking Josh Alexander. And then we get this Motor City Machine Gun promo where Josh Alexander interrupts them. So he said the loss at Emergence was on him being distracted and going after Macklin on the ramp. And he said he would get his emotions in check and would focus on getting the championship back. Alex Shelley was accusing Alexander of calling him a transitional champion. And Josh got pissed and walked off. And then we get the RASCALZ walking in. All these... The best thing is they all kind of weave together these stories. The new tag champs, the RASCALZ, walk in. They're gloating about winning the championships from Subculture at Emergence. And Saban said they were embarrassing themselves in the belt. And we get that setup match between Saban and Zachary Wentz. A lot accomplished in this. Josh Alexander and Alex Shelley planting seeds inevitably for that match that we want to see, possibly a Bound for Glory. And you got Saban and Wentz signed up for a match. And there is heat, too. You can have Alex Shelley and Chris Sabin go after those tag belts. A lot being sown here.
Yeah, absolutely. And all within just a few minutes. You know, you put a bow on the question mark at the end of Emergence between Alex Shelley and Josh Alexander, and then also set up this match going forward for with tonight with Wentz and Chris Sabin. It's masterwork, master craftsmanship going on right now with these backstage segments at Impact.
And I also think, too, I know there was some discrepancy about Alex Shelley walking out on his team last week at Emergence and people kind of thinking, oh, was this a heel turn? It's just a competitive champion. And we saw that here. There's a competitive edge between Alexander and Shelley where they want to one-up each other. inevitably the title's going back on Alexander. There's unwritten story there that they need to pick back up on. But I love this side plot we're at where we have Shelley here. And I think ultimately the biggest match on the table for your biggest event of the year is Josh Alexander and Alex Shelley for that championship. And we're going to probably get Alexander versus Macklin at Victory Road. But I also think it's good not to waste that bullet, because I think a moment like Josh Alexander getting the championship back after overcoming a very serious injury, that's a bound for glory moment, equivalent to the biggest event of the year with the confetti coming down and him celebrating. And really what is a admirable title reign for Alex Shelley. I mean, you've put the exclamation point for October, he loses the championship. That's a nice run where people really, I know they're making light of the word transitional champion, but by all accounts, that's what he was at first. And now he's taking that belt and bringing a lot of meaning. It was bouncing around, Macklin holding it. Everyone's like, okay, well, they're just biding time. Shelley really cemented himself here as they're probably hesitant to take it off him sooner. Like, I think that this was still Macklin and maybe they didn't pivot to Shelley, they would have wasted no time putting on Alexander and just going to the races.
Absolutely. If anybody was a transitional champion, it was Macklin. I mean, at this point, if Shelley does drop the belt at Bound for Glory in October, that'll be his fifth or sixth defense at this point.
Sixth, yeah,
sixth defense. So I mean, there's and you know, he's beat people names Tanahashi, Nick Aldis. I mean, you can't take there's no way in hell that anybody can balk at Alex Shelley and say he's a transitional champion at this point.
This was a great segment, and this reminded me of the Attitude Era type of stuff where so many stories are interwoven, and they do this every week. But the Rascals too, that this in so many ways unspoken puts the tag team championship at the level of the world championship, because you have the Rascals coming in and really injecting himself in this situation where maybe Wentz and Miguel, and we're going to see Miguel's going to get a title shot at the 1000th episode, but maybe they don't specifically want the world championship quite yet, but they want to cause chaos. They want to upset what's going on across the whole roster. And those tag titles are being foreseen as World Tag Team Championship. And they're standing on the same pedestal as these main eventers. And I understand that's like probably very unspoken for a lot of people, but I picked it up where Wentz and Miguel are on the same level as Shelley and Sabin.
Oh, 100%. And I just can't get enough of the Rascals, man. Their backstage antics are just tops.
So good. And you have all the stuff with the spray paint. And I know we weren't on here talking about Emergence because you were, not feeling well. Just quickly, your thoughts on that Subculture match. To me, the Rascals and Subculture match lived up. It maybe everyone felt like the Rascals were always going to win the championship, and it paid off, man. I feel like they legitimized them. Of course, they're always going to do the cheating, but I felt like they had more of a legitimate win here than they've ever had across this whole run. They cheated the whole way through that tournament, and they did cheat in this match, but it wasn't as evident as it was leading up.
And it wasn't as definitive in the outcome of the win. So I thought it paid off. I thought it was perfect. I didn't think it could have been any better. It was a great match. I really enjoy the fact that, the Rascals are talented enough to win a match without cheating, but that just shows how intense of heels they are, that they're going to cheat every single time to some degree. There's going to be some kind of shenanigans. I love that it's always the spray paint. I thought it was great, man. It was one of the highlights of the night for me.
That's 1999, 2000 Triple H level heel, because he was so damn good. Everybody knew it, but he cheated no matter what. And he was using his advantage no matter what. And that's the Rascals right now. And they are eliciting heat because they're so damn talented. They can match up with anyone in the ring, but they continually cheat, and they'll low blow you. They'll use the spray paint. They'll take any advantage they can with no scruples, man. They'll go out there and cheat, and they don't care what their reputation is, kayfabe wise.
Absolutely.
So we got Crazy Steve versus Speedball Mike Bailey, and we got a new look for Steve here. He came to the ring wearing a black coat, new creepy mask, and a new entrance, red lighting. So this presentation of Crazy Steve has been paired with that 3-part interview where ultimately ended him attacking Tom Hannafin at the end of it. Hannafin was selling it great on commentary. He was very torn up here about the confrontation with Steve, and this wasn't even a match. I mean, Steve charged Bailey at the bell, and Steve went after Bailey's eyes. The referee immediately DQ'd out of the safety. Speedball got the win by DQ, but the presentation of this was about what happened after the match, and also him coming out to the ring with this red light, the new mask. And Crazy Steve has always been creative in this space, but this felt like a completely different character with the same name.
Definitely. And I love the new presentation. That mask is creepy as hell. And the way that he took it off was awesome. He grabs the top and bottom jaw and splits them over top of his head and emerges from it. It's awesome. And I did not expect him to go after Speedball Mike Bailey's eyes with a fucking fork at all. Like it came totally out of left field. I think this was a really nice compliment and next step from the 3-piece interview that we saw that was super captivating. And then, we also got Black Taurus coming out to try to talk some sense into Steve, and he pulled the same move on Black Taurus. So Crazy Steve's on a warpath, man. I'm excited to see where it goes in the coming weeks.
Yeah, this was definitely story progression for Crazy Steve. And, Speedball Mike Bailey, the other thing is masterfully done. It wasn't a squash match. They could have easily just had him in there with enhancement talent. What was the guy's name that wrestled Kushida for the opening? Drilla Maloney could have been in there with Crazy Steve, and you had him go out with the offense, and he could have took the fork to his eye after the match. This was effective because Speedball's been a staple on our show every single week, who's going out there for a competitive match. It looked like Crazy Steve was going to have his hands full with Speedball, but he charged right at him. And this is a fast dude, Speedball. And the fact that he was able to catch up to him super quick off guard and then took the fork to his eyes for a guy that the fans really love. And I think this was really effective in making people understand that Crazy Steve is willing to do whatever it takes to get one up on the Impact roster. I don't know if his intentions are championships or whatever it might be. It definitely was interesting to me. And that was the best part because he's always been interesting. But we were talking last week or 2 weeks ago. What was his place on the card? How do you weave him into the world title picture or mid-card feuds? Where is he going to fit? I think that's just the answer. He's going to be everywhere. And that is the story here where he's going to cause some chaos on this roster. And maybe it's not about championships for him. It's about revenge or his perceived revenge on people that wronged him that didn't even know they wronged him.
And I think you make a great point with the fact that this was against Mike Bailey and not just some no-name enhancement talent. That makes him, it elevates him and solidifies his perception as a threat, and the fact that really no one on the roster is safe from his madness and his chaos. Really nice touch.
So we get Brian Myers, Moose, and Eddie Edwards cutting a promo here. Macklin said their opponents tonight didn't stand a chance. Moose talked about his differences with Eddie, but they could trust him. Eddie said that he's pretty much having all the momentum here after beating Frankie Kazarian in a back-to-school match and Alicia winning the Battle Royal. And he said he was different from Bully Ray, and Bully came in, interrupted, and Eddie walked off. So we have the Bully stuff with PCO. That's weaved into this. Myers was talking about Bully and PCO, and he's like, dude, you have an issue with PCO, not us. So please, leave us alone here. We have other stuff to focus on, a big main event. And then Moose gets in their face and said, you could add them to the list of people Bully has burned bridges with. He and Myers walked off, and Bully is looking around, and he could hear PCO screaming for him in the background. So it seems like all the walls are closing in on Bully Ray in this relationship. We expected it to kind of go wayward with Myers and Moose, and eventually everyone would get sick of Bully Ray stuff. It happened here, and it seems like we're done with this union. Leo Rush wasn't involved in this, but you can imagine he's done with them as well and moving forward. So the PCO Bully Ray stuff, where does this go, though? What is the payoff of PCO and Bully Ray? Obviously, it has to be some crazy... Is it a Clockwork Orange match? If you want to dip into the bag of tricks that Impact TNA has to offer, what is the payoff of something as extreme? We see battery acid, we see electrocution. What happens with these guys? Someone has to be written off TV.
It's got to be a no holds barred match. There's got to be no DQ. I don't know if it actually necessarily has to be some sort of a gimmick match, but just the fact that anything goes is really the only way to go here. And I'm happy to see the breakup between Moose and Myers and Bully Ray. I thought that little scumbag trio ran just the perfect amount of time. Not too short, not too long. And I think it looks like we're going to get the wrap, or at least the next chapter of Bully Ray and PCO at Victory Road, which I also think if we put a bow on this here at Victory Road, then this storyline has also run the perfect amount of time and has not gone on too long. So excited to see where it goes next.
It has me believing one of these dudes has to be written off TV. And obviously Bully Ray's going to be around for Team 3 of the reunion. But what is the payoff of this? Someone's just not getting pinned and they're going to move away from each other. There has to be some conclusion that's extreme. and maybe someone wants to take time off. PCO just took some time off and came back. Maybe it's Bully. He wants to focus on the radio show. This has me feeling, because I mean, we got the promo for Will Ospreay separating in the sandwich of the segments, and then we get the Bully Ray running from PCO, Bully blocking him from coming through a door. Bully's calling PCO by his shoot name Carl and saying, he attacked him because he cares about him. And he's like, I was trying to kill the monster. I want the man back. I want my friend back. That's the different edge here. Has me feeling that at Victory Road, we may get some crazy match, but I don't know if that's the end of it. I know I'm kind of going in circles with it, but like, how do you just have a pinfall or not? Like, this has to be someone that almost gets killed off on TV.
Yeah, absolutely, man. It's hard to say who it'll be, because you can make cases for both. You can make the case that Bully Ray wants to spend more time on going back to Busted Open Radio and doing convention appearances. You could also make the argument that PCO, like Tommy Dreamer said later in the show tonight, is around 107 years old. Maybe brother's ready to take a little bit longer of a vacation. He's been at it a long time. I gotta say, I didn't love Bully Ray calling PCO by his shoot name. I didn't like that angle very much. It took me out of it just a little bit. So I hope that doesn't go a whole lot deeper, and we just get a knockdown, drag out, no DQ match for these guys at Victory Road.
I mean, maybe it's PCO want to do a creative change where he comes back, and we've seen him do things like this. Of course, what he's doing now is the spot on Frankenstein interpretation, but it used to be just like, he is a Frankenstein. He doesn't dress like one. So now, I mean, they give PCO creative control to do what he wants, because clearly he's doing his own thing. We saw him in Ring of Honor as the world champion, as this undead, older type of wrestler that was taking extreme risks with planches where in matches he shouldn't be hitting planches and no selling things. Maybe his goal is to kind of end a career with wrestling as one half of the Quebecers instead of doing a PCO stuff. Like, this dude's been in the business for a very long time, so I guess people give him the leeway. And this has been entertaining. It's two veterans going against each other that have a lot of experience in the business, so we'll give them some rope here to do what they want. And if it's not hurting anybody to have this program happen, it has been entertaining, as goofy as some of it might be. This is the type of stuff on Impact that people are starting to expect, and creatively, it's scratching an itch for some people, because it has this side of it that you're not going to see anywhere else.
Oh no, you're never. I can't remember the last time I saw battery acid being poured down anyone's throat anywhere on pro wrestling. And it's been quite a while since we've seen people be lit on fire, but I was happy to see it, man. I was bought in 100%, and so I'm excited to see where they go with it. I think you're right. I don't think we can necessarily tie it completely up at Victory Road.
So we move on to Eric Young versus Khan, and Tom Hadafin on commentary. Make sure to mention that Diener was unable to be here this evening, and this match goes back and forth. 13 minutes. I mean, the match was, Eric Young is so over with this Impact audience. It's so great to see him back. And right now, this might be the end of Eric and the design. This felt like almost a conclusion on things that are going on with him. I'm not sure if you got the same feeling after this match, because Eric got pretty much a clean win here with the pile driver. Not a lot of funny business here, and Eric Young moves on. It feels like he's on to bigger and better things from the design.
I think so too, especially with how definitive the win over Diener was at Emergence as well. So I liked this match a lot. This was one of my favorite parts. I thought this match told incredible story. The first half, I'd say, like you said, this match ran 13 minutes. The first 8.5 minutes of this match, it was all Khan. It did not look like Eric Young was going to be able to take on the big man by any means. He was just doing his best to not be totally flattened. And it really took him hitting a pile driver on the outside and then hitting another one back to back to be able to pull this off tonight. I thought this really made Khan look strong, even with taking the loss here. Khan hasn't taken many pins since he's been in Impact. And it also, like you said, made Eric Young look like he might be able to move past the design at this point, which I think is a good thing. But both guys came out looking strong here. Thought it told a really good story. Enjoyed this match a lot.
So they also really put over the fact that Khan was able to get in the ring after Eric Young hit the pile driver on the floor. Tom Hadafin was really selling the fact that only two people have been able to kick out of the pile driver. And eventually it was his end, but he had to hit a second one. So I think, as you referenced before, it didn't make Khan look weak. He played his role as the big man really well, dominated the beginning portion of the match, And the babyface reaction is only equivalent to the heat that someone else is getting. So I got to give Khan a lot of credit here. I understand Eric Young is over, but people wanted to see him come fight from underneath this big bad guy who people were buying. And I think that's kind of the silver lining of this feud with stuff you're not really considering. Everyone's talking about Diener and Eric Young and the history with them. But the side product is Khan here. I mean, this guy has come a long way since his time in NXT. Him as a singles star here is a big deal. And every wrestling promotion needs size. A guy can move and a guy that can really beat down a babyface and get all these reactions. It feels like Khan is destined to at least play that role on this Impact roster. And I think this is a good fit for him.
Yeah, I want to make sure that I give Khan his flowers for feeding a comeback tonight, because that's something that a lot of heels don't necessarily, especially this early in their career, are great at. And he did a fantastic job of it tonight.
So we get a Lio Rush backstage promo. He's talking about Chris Sabin wanting another X Division Championship match. And he's asking, why does Sabin want to wrestle me again? And he also said, why does he get in the ring with Zachary Wentz tonight? And he said that, Sabin, when you're ready to get in the ring with me, let's do it, because I'll beat you just like I did. The result will be the same. And Lio seems very confident. But we have Kushida approaching. There's going to be a roadblock between Sabin getting there, and it's going to be Victory Road. So Kushida makes it clear he wants a shot at the X Division Championship, cashing in the Giant X. We're going to get Kushida versus Lio Rush. For me, this is going to bang, man. This is going to be a great match. Two guys that can really work. Bigger match is Sabin versus Lio Rush. You save down for glory, and a nice subplot will be against Kushida.
Yeah, I could see this going either way at Victory Road. I don't think that we necessarily need the X Division title on Lio Rush for the match between him and Sabin. I think that, it's anybody's game at Victory Road. And I think that, the title doesn't need to be in the picture for the payoff for Sabin versus Lio Rush too, by any means.
That's a really good point. I honestly didn't even consider that Kushida could win. I think you're right. I mean, separating the championship from this blood feud probably could do a lot of wonders for really. It's as simple as this. I mean, he knocked him out with a cheap shot, with a plancha before the match started. And that's where the story is. Championship really doesn't matter. It became a blood feud. And I think having the X Division Championship out of the picture might free up both Sabin and Lio Rush to be involved in this main event, where, to me, I want Shelley versus Sabin for the championship somewhere. It may not be at a pay-per-view. It may not be a Bound for Glory. I want it somewhere because I think it's a moment in time. I don't know if we're ever going to get the opportunity to have the Motor City Machine Guns against each other for the Impact World Championship. I think it has to happen.
Yeah, it's too good of a story to not have it happen. And even if it is at a weekly TV, I mean, what a main event that would be.
Right. That's what I want, because I think at this point, we know it's Alexander's show. It feels like once it's the King's back, like take the crown back, sit on the throne, but he has to wait a little bit. And I think it'd be easy for them to just throw the championship back on Alexander, because that was always the intended thing. He might have been still champion right now if he didn't get injured. I think he could be champion now without any hiccups. He could be rivaling the longest championship reigns, because people forget when Alexander before he got hurt, there were comparisons that he was the best world champion in all of pro wrestling, especially that he was taking an Impact championship that needed rehabilitating. And the brand was rising because Alexander was holding it, and all the battles that this dude had for this championship and just the presence he had. Make no mistake about it. They want it back on Alexander, but I think the road to get there, pun intended with Victory Road, is long and winding. So there's a lot of cool stops you can make. As I mentioned, Chris Sabin versus Alex Shelley, to me, maybe they don't see it that way, but I would love to have a competitive match where both guys shake hands. They abide by a code of honor after the match, before the match, and they don't have to feud. I don't want them to feud. I want them just to have a match with that title at stake. Let them go 20 minutes. Like you said, weekly TV or pay-per-view or whatever, streaming special. I want it to happen.
Yeah, it's be a really cool moment in the history between two guys who have a ton of just that between each other. History, and they've never really gone one-on-one. They've always been a team. So this would be pretty interesting, and I'd hate to see them pass on that opportunity.
So here we have Chris Sabin taking on Zachary Wentz. So both Alex Shelley and Trey Miguel are in the corners. This to me felt like they're setting up the Rascals versus Motor City Machine Guns somewhere down the line. So who knows where they're going with this. And that's the best part about it, because there's so much tied into this. This match was awesome, man. 14 minutes. And this was very enjoyable. I mean, they have great chemistry. Both these guys flowed together. To me, the function of this match, aside from quality match on weekly TV, as we get consistently on Impact on AXS, was to establish Chris Sabin as this badass going into the match with Lio Rush. And they've done a really good job of that going forward, because after Chris Sabin lost in what was shocking fashion at Slammiversary, they've done a really good job of making sure you're like, no, Chris Sabin is an absolute badass. He could take on anybody. And really, Lio Rush got lucky. So we're going to see that kind of take fold at Bound for Glory, where he's going to come in with a whole shitload of momentum.
Yeah, absolutely, man. I thought this was a really fun match as well. I like that we had both Trey Miguel and Alex Shelley at ringside, and both of them getting involved in the respective ways. And, going back to the beginning backstage segment earlier in the show, the Rascals were kind of getting in the Motor City Machine Guns' asses a little bit, mockingly singing their theme song at them when they came back to interrupt them. And this just, showed them, like, this is who you're messing with, guys, and be prepared, because it looks like we're gonna get a matchup between these guys sooner rather than later.
So just because Wentz and Miguel are they're not wrestling anymore, we're still going to get more of them on our screen. We get a clip of Emergence, them winning the championship belts. And then we also see ABC fighting with the Good Hands. And then we get the ABC backstage promo where Ace Austin congratulated the Rascals on doing what it took to win the championship, but it's going to be sweet when they take them back. Chris Bay said they are the best team in the world. And he also kind of referenced the Good Hands as being these henchmen for the Rascals, saying you're paying them off. The Good Hands approached. They argued some more, and ABC challenged them to a match. And the Good Hands said, whoa, wait just a second, not yet. So really cool stuff here. And we're going to talk about Subculture being featured. And I'm curious your thoughts on that, because you got to keep them hot. ABC and the Rascals, man, Bound for Glory. This is your two biggest tag teams for the championship belts. Do you think it needs a stipulation, or you can just go one-on-one with these teams and let them go, like I said, 20, 25 minutes and let them steal the show?
I think you can go one-on-one and let them steal the show. If there's going to be a stipulation, I think the only one that we have would maybe be, because the Rascals are so notorious for cheating, maybe make a stipulation that the belt can change hands on a DQ. So if they decide that they do want to cheat and they lose that way, well, tough shit, you're losing the belts. And I could see Santino Marella making a stipulation like that. Absolutely. So yeah, I think and we'll get to it here in the next segment. Tag division is stacked, man. They have but this is the money feud. I think you're right. ABC versus Rascals it's where it's at. It's where it started when the Rascals first came back on the scene. These were the guys that they had their sights set on first. What better payoff than to have ABC go against them for the belts?
So we have Subculture fresh off their loss from the tag team championship, and they are coming out of this as a newly renovated tag team. And we look back at where Subculture was prior to Slammiversary when they won the titles. Now they're sitting here, a completely different team with that on their resume. And now it's time for Impact to keep the heat on them and keep them strong as another great addition to this tag division that joins the ranks of just so many great teams. And Subculture approaches Santino Marella here. They ask for a rematch, and Marella made it clear. He said they already made a match for the Motor City Machine Guns to face the Rascals at Victory Road. Sammy Callan and Rich Swann interrupted, and they said, hey, we were screwed too. We had them beat, and they beat us, so technically we deserve a championship match. Santino tried to make sense of this, and Subculture, he said to them, Subculture, if you guys can face Sammy and Swann, and Joe Hendry and Yuri Imura came up, and they did the same thing. They won a tag team title shot. Santino said, you guys are almost there. You're not quite there, but this was them flexing, man. You were just saying how stacked the tag division was. We just saw 4 legitimate teams come through the picture where, sometimes other promotions have trouble putting together 3 teams of meaning. We have 5 on our screen right now.
Yeah, you took the words right out of my mouth. This entire segment was a huge flex by Impact Brass to show how stacked their tag division is. I mean, we've got the next 4 or 5 pay-per-views booked right here. Just plug and play, baby.
So we're going to get Motor City Machine Guns facing the Rascals at Victory Road, which means we're not going to get a world championship match, right? I mean, And this will be the second pay-per-view streaming special in a row with no championship match. So ballsy move. And I understand that, they don't do things exactly by the traditional book here. Impact's always rewriting the playbook, and it's also how they perceive the tag team championship. It shows that kind of their faith in it.
Hey, we still got another week to build, man. They could pull it all in. I mean, MJF pulled
True.
double duty.
Yeah, I mean, you're right. So I think there is that. I think they're saving a lot of their bullets for Bound for Glory. I really do. Yeah. I think they're saving for a lot of these matches, and they don't want to give something away, which is smart. And maybe we're going to see some of this stuff continue throughout the beginning of 2024, which speaks volumes about their long-term storytelling. There's so much meat on the bone. As I know it's this cliche, we always say it, but there really is. They could stretch this out to the spring of next year. There's so much here.
Oh, absolutely, man. And what a good problem to have.
So we have another meaningful segment here. Kenny King and Sheldon Jean come out to the ring. King's just kind of playing the heel, insulting the crowd, and referencing that he beat Johnny Swinger. Sadly, at Emergence, we thought we were going to have Johnny Swinger as the digital media champion even for a short period of time. And we get him also talking about beating up Tommy Dreamer as well at the same pay-per-view. Dreamer comes out, and the fans go crazy. They're chanting ECW. And he gets on the mic and he says, the real story of Emergence is that Swinger had heard that his father-in-law passed away 4 hours before the match. Dreamer said he ran out to save Swinger because he always has his friends back. The segment goes longer and longer. We hear Dreamer reference a lot of the history of pro wrestling, which was awesome. Tommy Dreamer, an underrated mic man. I think he's done a lot of great stuff on the mic. This is interesting because obviously with Dreamer putting his career on the line, which eventually we'll see, there's no way he's losing this match. So we're going to get Tommy Dreamer, the digital media champion. I'm kind of here for it.
I'm here for it as well. I don't know though, man. I'm torn. I could see, because how many times have we seen a career match go down where somebody inevitably did not retire? Ric Flair.
Right.
It's happened. It's definitely happened. And, we also heard him say, he's had a hard year. He's lost his mom. He's been diagnosed with skin cancer. Obviously, if Dreamer were to lose this match, his career in ring might end, but you 100% believe that he's still going to be working. He's still going to be backstage for every Impact show. Absolutely. I loved this setup, man. I'm a huge Tommy Dreamer fan. I love some reality in my wrestling. So the fact that he was talking about, Johnny Swinger's father-in-law passing away, unfortunately, just before or either during or just before the match against Kenny King at Emergence. I love that he called Kenny King and Sheldon Jean out for not sticking around and watching the main event. Made those guys look like real chicken shit heels. I loved everything about this match, and I love a stipulation, especially a career versus title. So I would love to see Tommy Dreamer as digital media champion.
Yeah, and of course, it's the talent's discretion, but I just can't see Tommy Dreamer, a guy who's accomplished so much in the business, going out on an episode of Impact on AXS. I understand that there's unretirement possibilities. You could make the choice to do that. We've seen it time and time again. But why not put the championship on Tommy Dreamer, right?
I think this is a Victory Road.
Oh, this is a Victory Road. My apologies. But still, a Victory Road to be losing Tommy Dreamer, and I understand he still has more to give here. And maybe he believes immensely in Kenny King and what he's going to be doing in the future of pro wrestling. And Kenny King's so talented, but to say you retire Tommy Dreamer is a big deal. I understand people don't, because Tommy Dreamer's legacy is not as much in the forefront for people unless you were an ECW diehard and now you're watching Impact. But he's accomplished so much in pro wrestling. For Kenny King to get that'd be a huge deal.
Oh, absolutely. And I mean, Tommy Dreamer's contribution, just even backstage alone between WWE and Impact, is absolutely massive, man. The guy's given a lot to the business, both in and outside of the ring.
And I also like what he was talking about too. He said he's turned down millions because he believed in something, and he always listened to veterans like Terry Funk and Paul Heyman. And he also, talked about his age, being 52. He's not a spring chicken. And, and he also talked about the history of guys going longer. Talked about Sting wrestling at the biggest stage we've seen in wrestling in history at Wembley Stadium, Chris Jericho, and also talked about PCO, putting him over here as an older guy in there working. Cool to see these guys hanging around, and it's awesome to see Tommy Dreamer. He looks happy, you know what I mean? Like he looks like he's having a good time, and I'm awesomely excited to see him get the chance to be on a pay-per-view in 2023 going after a championship. This is especially after just watching ECW in full. Like we covered 1995 and the beginning stages of his career, and going forward and watching what Tommy Dreamer became. I'm a big ECW fan, so Tommy Dreamer holds a lot of space in my heart. And seeing him here against Kenny King, at the very least, this is going to be fun. I hope he doesn't retire. I hope just put the championship on him. Use this digital media championship as a television championship. It doesn't have to be these long reigns. Let Tommy Dreamer even have a reign, and he can drop it at the tapings the next night. Let him just continue to do this.
Yeah, let him get it. Let him get it for at least one night, man. I would love to see it.
Add it to his resume. It'd be cool to add it to his cage match resume of all the things he's able to do. You know, he's a guy who is, you know, in it by his own terms, a guy who didn't win a lot of big matches. He was always sort of, you know, referenced maybe on the losing side of some feuds, but that makes him even more memorable. I don't want to see him go out at Victory Road. I think having the option to tag him in, even if he's not going to wrestle full, of course he's not active all this time, but seeing him, the ability for Impact to tag him in for a match here, I don't want them to just retire him just for that moment. I think being able to have him win here, even if he drops it to Kenny King the next night in White Plains in the tapings, that's cool to me. It's absolutely fine. I just don't want him retiring.
I don't either. And the only thing that makes me still think that it might be a possibility is because he made reference to the White Plains venue having significance to him, being somewhere that he either, I don't remember if it was where he wrestled his first match or where he watched his first match as a kid. So that's, you know, that little breadcrumb there did something for me. So either way, I'm excited to see the payoff.
Well, let's just say if he does retire at White Plains, tears will be shed. I mean, this dude, the impact that he's had on the industry, he's a big piece. And I know we're talking about the big in the ECW, but he was also a great hardcore champion through those middle years of WWE.
Absolutely.
He was the dude, if you people remember, like for that short period of time where they were changing the way the hardcore championship looked. And I think he had changed it to a New York license plate for a minute. I think it was 2002. And then JBL changed it to something when he was Bradshaw. There was a couple of guys that changed the championship, but he was the first guy. He came out with the New York license plate as the hardcore championship. I just remember that. It just popped in my head.
Yeah, pretty awesome, man. Dreamers are one of a kind, man.
They gave this segment a lot of time. I mean,
They
for a
did.
digital media championship, which is a lot of times a pre-show match, this was Sheldon Jean and Kenny King got a lot of time here to really build this match up. So you're right. Maybe there's some weight to it that, like you said, White Plains is the spot. We saw Edge wanted Toronto. It was a SmackDown against Sheamus. Seems to be the end of his WWE run. Maybe that's the same with Tommy Dreamer. He wants to end in White Plains. And when's the next time he's going to be there for a main promotion? Not many people run White Plains for a TV show.
Good point.
So we go to our main event here. Frankie Kazarian, Jake Something, and Sonata teaming up against Eddie Edwards, Moose, and Brian Myers. Before we get into the action here, this had big match feel. A lot of main eventers here. Kudos to them for using Sonata the next night on tapings. He's in town anyway. Might as well continue to keep him there before he flies back. Sonata, man, I was hard on him when he won the IWGP World Championship. I feel like he leaves a lot to be desired in the legacy of that championship belt. I'm not a huge fan of him. I thought he showed out here. He had some star presence, especially he earned a lot of points in the eyes of fans that know about his injury. This dude has a torn bicep working out there at a high level, continued to be a grinding champion. But I was most impressed with Jake Something, man. They definitely see growth in him. They want to highlight him. And this match to me felt like, let's put him in a main spot and have him shine. Having him pin Brian Myers to win the match with all the stars in this match, former world champions, spoke volumes to me, and I was a big fan of it.
Yeah, man. I got to agree with you. Jake Something is the next big thing for me. I can't get enough of him. Dude's got a great look, and just he's a $1 million guy. You know, he's somebody that you talked about. Excuse me, if Alexander had never gotten hurt, and if he could still be the champion, I mean, that would be the best. That would be the biggest money feud to me, is if we were, you know, coming off Alexander being a multi-year championship run, and then Jake Something coming back looking like he looks. That would be the feud I would want to be seeing at Bound for Glory right there. So, I mean, I think that Jake Something is just a matter of time before he makes his way to the title picture. I don't think it's at Bound for Glory, but I think the writing's on the wall that it goes back on Alexander at Bound for Glory. I mean, it's got to, right?
Right.
I think that it's not going to be very long after that Jake Something makes his way into that title picture.
It just shows what they thought about him here too. Because think about the other 5 guys in the match that they sat there and said, Jake Something's going to go. And he could have pinned any of those guys. He pinned Brian Myers, who is, I mean, he's a top guy here in Impact.
Absolutely. He's a top guy in any promotion, man.
For sure. And the fact that, too, the Sonata's there, he's there for really just 2 nights for the Toronto tapings. They easily could have gave New Japan Pro Wrestling a pat on the back and let Sonata be highlighted here, but they took the opportunity to showcase Jake Something. And of course, this party type of match and 6-man tag, they found a way to highlight everybody. Everybody got their shit in, as cliche as it might sound. But Jake Something, to me, shined brighter than everybody in this match. And that says a lot when you have the IWGP World Champion, you got Eddie Edwards, Moose, Frankie Kazarian, the history of those dudes, and then you add in Brian Myers. This was strategic on their end. And this, to me, is a precursor for what's to come probably in early 2024, if not by Bound for Glory next year. Jake Something is destined to be at the top of this card, as you mentioned. And really, he's a hidden gem that a lot of wrestling fans probably haven't really dove deep into, but he has an old school look with a new style of wrestling where he looks like Hercules Hernandez, but works like a modern day guy. And that is a dangerous combination that any promotion would be silly not to build around.
Absolutely, man. And what a nod from, Kazarian and Sonata, Edwards, Moose, everybody involved in this match for them to, bring Jake Something into this and have him be the one that gets the pin. It's definitely a big vote of confidence from these. I mean, Kazarian, Eddie Edwards, Moose, Myers. I mean, these guys are titans in Impact Wrestling, and for them to all collectively be working with him tonight and give him the nod speaks volumes.
Yeah, this was a really fun match and main event feel. And I think pretty much all the Impact shows we have, they all have main events that feel big. This one felt big, entrance-wise, everybody coming out, felt like a big match feel with no championship on the line. The fact that Sonata was there, and I know I was referencing before, not the hugest fan of what he's doing with the IWGP Championship, but earned a lot of respect from me in the G1, for sure. And then coming here on the Impact, the 2 matches he had here, the one against Jake Something, the mutual respect, we even referenced that part. Now they're teaming together after wrestling each other at Emergence. Of course, Sonata beat Jake Something. Title wasn't on the line, but it just shows a lot of, like you said, the good faith they're building in Jake Something, and they're investing in the stock here. And I think eventually they're going to cash out and they're going to bring him to the top of the card when they're ready. We reference how bloated the main event is. There's so much at the top. And there's so much to sift through where you could literally look at the top of the card. We referenced the Motor City Machine Gun stuff, the Alexander stuff, Eric Young as well. He's done with the design and that feud. He's got to eventually go to the top of the card. Everybody's eating at the top of the card, but there's only one world championship. They have to find a way to tell meaningful stories, and they're doing a good job. So in a lot of ways, the main event is plentiful, and we're going to find out who they deem is going to be carrying the company in the future. It's going to be Alexander, but he needs a big bad against him. It wouldn't shock me if they say, hey, let's turn Jake Something heel and have him be an absolute killer and go after Alexander in late spring next year.
Absolutely, man. Sign me up.
So before we move into the impactful moment, just remember Victory Road will be on 9/8 in White Plains. We'll cover it next week, of course, on our episode on 9/7. And we're also going to be talking about Bound for Glory, 10/21 in Chicago, the build to that. Cicero Stadium, Cicero, Illinois, is going to be a hot spot. Chicago and Toronto, as we referenced, Canada and Chicago, rinse, repeat. They know where they're getting there, and I don't blame them. Maybe with the new expanded production value, they're going to start to go to different cities. Personally, I would love it. Love them to come to Long Island. I mean, White Plains is as close as it's going to get. So, but I would like to see them kind of go to different places and tap into markets. I know they went to Australia. They're going back to the UK, but stateside, I would like to see them go, maybe try out some of these untapped potential and build a new fan base. Maybe they're going to try.
Yeah. Be nice to see them branch out a little bit. I mean, Chicago and Toronto, historic hot towns for pro wrestling, but there's plenty of others I'd like to see them pop up in.
Absolutely, man. Let's get to the impactful and talk about our favorite match of the week or moment of the week.
Impactful.
All right, Colton, we had a great night of Impact action on AXS. What did you walk away with saying that was most memorable and your favorite thing from this week's Impact on AXS?
This was a tough one to pick, man. I had a lot of contenders, but pound for pound, end of the night, I think I'm going to have to go with the Tommy Dreamer and Kenny King segment. That just the emotion involved, just have just the possibility of having Tommy Dreamer as a digital media champion, or the fact that he might be hanging up his in ring, taking off his boots and walking off into the Wild Blue Yonder. That's really got me hooked for Victory Road, man. I really like this angle, and I liked how much time they gave it.
I agree with you, man. What a great segment. I'm going to go with the in-ring action. I'm a sucker for work rate. Chris Sabin and Zachary Wentz going at it here. Very impressed with this match. I thought it was great. The chemistry was there, but how could it not be good? I mean, with both these guys in the match. So I thought it lived up to expectations. 14 minutes. I thought it did a fair share of kind of blending together. There was only one commercial break that separated it. We didn't, of course, see it because we're watching on YouTube, but the commercial break, you'll see the break in action. They don't really do picture in picture for every single match. We saw that one week they did picture in picture, but I thought this match was good for a TV match structured wise. And I think it really established what the function was to heat Chris Sabin up, get him ready for Lio Rush, inevitably for Bound for Glory. And then obviously keep the tag champ strong. Thought it served both masters, and Sabin winning with the cradle shock was the right choice. I thought this match was great and definitely my highlight of the week.
Oh yeah. As far as work rate goes, top notch. They did a hell of a lot in 14 minutes.
All right, let's get the shock and awe. Give our final wrap up preview next week. Do some tavern hype, maybe some mullet hype. We didn't get it last week. I'm definitely needing my update from you. Let's get the shock and awe.
Shock and awe.
All right, here on Shock and Awe for our final wrap up next week's show, we'll be covering on 9/7 for the weekly TV show and Impact. And we'll be talking about the latest news in Impact, tying in some Impact history to fill in the gaps. Make sure you guys tune in. So before we get there, Colton, Jesse, got us update on the mullet, because we're approaching the fall. Voting's got to be starting soon, right?
Starting soon. I don't have a date yet. I do know that today, August 31st, is the last day for registration for the Mullet Champ USA competition. So I'm eagerly awaiting instructions from the administrators from mulletchampusa.com. I did find out that the main prize is a lot bigger than I thought it was. It's $10,000.
Whoa.
I was thinking it was $5,000. It is double that. So, last year I entered, it kind of snuck up on me, and all of a sudden I think they had, they communicated they reserve the right to close registration early. They leave it open for a month, but if they get too many submissions, they shut it down. And they did that last year, and I got the email saying, hey, today's the last day. If you're going to do it, do it. And I didn't have my best hair day when I submitted that. So I got some really nice professional photos taken the day that I got my haircut last. So looking super fresh. I also submitted my application August 2nd. So I was one of the early entrants. Tonight, here in about 35 minutes is the last minutes that you can enter for this year. So by the second week of September, at the latest, I should have some information for voting. So mulletchampusa.com or mulletchampusa on Instagram. You can also find me spamming the hell out of it on my Instagram at mullet.mania. I know that if you follow us on the Turnbuckle Tavern anywhere, I'm sure you're going to see it at one point. So appreciate the support. Let's help us bring this trophy home to the tavern. And man, $10,000 wouldn't hurt my feelings either.
Yeah, and send Colton to Philly for WrestleMania and fund the trip. That'd be amazing.
Let's go.
First round on him in Philly. So only for tavern guys though. But maybe if you're a diehard listener, you get a round from Mullet.mania. But other things. We have the debate coming up. So I know this week you guys did the Fatal 4-Way. The original 4 Horsemen were back in tow, and of course, talking CM Punk, talking Bray Wyatt, talking some other things. I want to hype up the debate.
Yeah, man, I got to be back on the debate. It's my first time on in damn near 8 weeks, which was great. I usually don't roll that long, but we've been doing a really good job of getting some fresh blood as far as guests go, and some bigger names on the weekly debate show. So I had a good time getting back in there with the two bad Chads and the OG Fig Kid Tom himself. So had a great time this week talking Punk, talking Bray, and then also talking about whether or not we think that AEW can pull a Wembley-sized gate in the U.S. So tune in. It's going to drop on YouTube on Sunday, and then audio drop on Monday on Apple and Spotify. So like always, go to theturnbuckletavern.com, like, subscribe, follow us on Instagram, Twitter, YouTube, Facebook, Pro Wrestling Tees. Please leave us a 5-star review on Apple and Spotify. That shit goes a long way. We really appreciate it. Doesn't take much time. If you do write a review, screenshot it, let Ace know. We'll send you some stickers in the mail, man.
Absolutely. Great job shilling over there. And also make sure you guys check it out on Friday, tomorrow night, Saturday night's main event, our second episode, taped on delay. And we covered Hulk Hogan versus Terry Funk for the WWF Championship before his passing. So we're talking about Terry Funk and talking about his career and how great he was. And that we were recording before he passed. So, it is kind of serendipitous, poetic or whatever that we covered that match. To me, it was a match I never saw, didn't even know it happened. His WWF run was kind of in my blind spot, but seeing it on Saturday night's main event, there's some hidden gems as far as who Hogan defends the championship against. So it was a great watch, and make sure you guys check it out. We are going to be doing 16 more episodes following this. So an 18 episode season of Saturday night's main event, the full catalog of the events, and really talk about the importance that NBC portrayed on not just WWF's growth, but wrestling's growth as far as in the public eye. It's been fascinating. As I mentioned, I have pretty much the hard copies of the newsletters. If you are a subscriber to the Wrestling Observer newsletter with Dave Meltzer, Brian Alvarez, you can't access these. You had to go out of your way. They only have a few in 1993, 1994, and then from 95 on, they pretty much have every single newsletter, which is why we kind of stuck with ECW 95, WCW 96. We did WWF 1998. We had all the digital copies of it, but the older versions were typed on a typewriter, and some of them have, in the margins is Dave Meltzer's editing notes, and he had to type over things, and it still has the postage on some of them. So it is fascinating to read. So whether you like Dave Meltzer or not, he's a wrestling historian, has been doing it a very long time and providing the context of wrestling through his lens, and nobody did it for as long or as in depth as he continues to do it. And it provides the context, because I think a lot of shows do the retro watch alongs and they talk about how they perceive really what the event felt like watching it now through the eyes of an adult if you watched it as a kid, but now watching with the context of the business side of things and understanding this was written before WWF was a guaranteed monster to overtake the whole business. This is the first couple episodes are months removed from the first WrestleMania, which people think once WrestleMania 1 opened their doors at MSG that it was over. WWF kind of was gangbusters and took everybody else. That wasn't the case. WrestleMania 2 wasn't even a guarantee. When they ran WrestleMania 2, it wasn't really well received. And, it wasn't really until WrestleMania 3, Hogan and Andre, that kind of launched them into where they were. And, the rest is history. But history is also written by the winners as well. So we're seeing some of that as they reference what is called the big lie, which is something that Dave Meltzer continues to talk about throughout this. But it's fascinating. Come along for the ride. Shot of Nostalgia is a great time. It drops on audio Saturday morning. And like we said, we appreciate all the support in the tavern. There are big things coming. We, as the Two Bad Chads referenced on the flagship, I'm not going to give any more details, but I know we keep saying big things are coming, but truly they are. So stay tuned for all the updates about what might be coming down the pike for Turnbuckle Tavern. Some changes coming, but good changes, because growth is good. And we're continuing to give you guys content 6 out of 7 days, really, and covering all things wrestling. And it's been a great ride to talk about all the stuff and seeing all the tavern alum come through. It's been a lot of fun. So Colton, I really appreciate this every single week. It's so great to have you back. So glad you're feeling better.
Me too, man. Great to be back. Never not like going a week without getting on here and going through Impact with you, man. It's always so much fun. And you guys stay tuned to Shot of Nostalgia. It's my travel schedule is slowing down for a couple of weeks here and there. So I'm not gonna tell you when, but just stay tuned. I'm gonna be making my return here sometime in the next few weeks.
Yeah, and we're gonna be announcing season 6 eventually. Rumor and Innuendo has us taking a little bit of a break and releasing some retro episodes on audio on Saturdays, maybe the WCW 1996. There's been some requests for that in audio format. Some people don't watch the video. Some of them want to consume Shot of Nostalgia or all their podcasts on audio. And I think the best way to do it would be to drop it on audio sequentially. I think it'd be overwhelming to put them all down at once, all 30 episodes. But stay tuned. Things change. Who knows? The momentum continues. But we're going to be doing 18 episodes. It's going to be happening until pretty much the end of the year and further on for Saturday night's main event. I'm going to keep us consumed, and I'll be talking about it. And also, just quick shout out to Mike Bellcaster doing all the stuff with AEW and everything that's going on there. Make sure you guys follow AEW Fan Fest. That's happening all out weekend. Enjoy the wrestling. I know there's so much to talk about, but keep you guys aware of what's going on in the figure world, because Fig Night has you covered. Follow at Official Fig Night for all your things for Turnbuckle Tavern, and continue doing all the stuff you guys do. Leave a review, support us any way you can.
And yeah, like I said, man, always like, subscribe. We appreciate you guys hanging out with us tonight. We'll catch you next week on Thursday. Stay tuned, and yeah, we'll see you then.
We'll talk to you after a while.